Hi, everybody. It's Joanne Eisen with Reach Unlimited, and we're here for another week of a great conversation. And this one's going to be fabulous. So I would like to welcome right from the beginning my guest, Kim Copeland. And she has got many talents, and I've worked with Kim for many different times. And she's the most kind and loving and gentle person you ever want to meet. And she's here to share a little bit about her story of who she is and how she got to where she's at. So thank you, Kim, for being with us today. And can you tell people a little bit about you?
Of course, and Joanne, thank you for having me. I'm so blessed and honored to be here with you and excited about this opportunity to share. So, yeah, well, I guess first of all, one of the reasons that brought us together is the book that, The Last Breath. And so I have a chapter in that. And how I got to that point is, it could be a whole lifetime of a story, but basically I do work as a hospice nurse and I am a medium. And so it's a wonderful combination to have, especially when somebody even just passed, and the loved ones are right there at the bedside and they're grieving. And sometimes they're very open to what's happening on the spirit side. And one of the things that I discovered through my many years in hospice was something that I've called shared near-death awareness. And because there is something called near-death awareness, that as people start transitioning toward death, it's I would say 90% of the time, they are aware of the spirit world, whether it's angels or loved ones, or maybe it's just their pets on the bed. They're very aware of that, and they think it's very normal. And sometimes what happens when the one who's dying is talking about these things, the family member thinks they're having hallucinations.
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, so I just want to encourage people to realize their reality is pretty real, and actually that spirit world may be more real than our world. And so instead of like treating it with medication or saying, oh, that's not true or whatever, to actually maybe invite the family, to the person who's dying, to talk about it more if they can, if they're able to talk about it.
Hi, Martha. That's a really big topic, because there's so many different beliefs. And so people, because no matter what your belief is, I've heard people say that, my whoever is talking to my whoever that had passed over, and they get kind of weirded out by that. Is this real or is this not real or whatnot? So it's definitely a phenomenon that a lot of people have experienced. But how do you help people that are maybe afraid of it? Or because I think there's two coins to that fear, right? It's the acknowledgement that they're actually seeing someone, but also understanding that you get to that point and you're coming close to the end of that person's life as well. So that's a double-edged sword.
Absolutely. I just dealt with that last weekend, because this one woman wanted to have her husband pack her bags for her so she could go home. And he was like, but no, this is your home. And he's really, a very linear type person. And no, and I'm not going to pack your bags. This is it, right? We built this house together, and, but I explained to him, and I would with anybody, this is what happens as we transition. And he was not ready for her to go. And she was only 60 years old. So I understand that he's not ready for her to actually see the spirit world. Hi, Joanne. Hi, Sharon. Hello, Joanne. But so I just explained, this is what it's normal. I normalize the near-death awareness, and explained that this is just what happens, and it's not a hallucination. Now there is, and I usually do explain the difference between a hallucination versus a vision. A hallucination is oftentimes where it's kind of scary or negative, or maybe there's spiders or bugs or things that are dark or whatever, or things like that. That would be hallucination. And that probably, since that's uncomfortable to experience that, I would say, yes, that would be something to medicate. But not seeing your loved ones, not wanting to pack the bags, not seeing the silver spaceship, that's normal. And then, so for my experience over the years, I started, and I was not born a medium, or at least that I remember.
Mhm.
I think we probably all are, but I don't remember being a medium and I don't remember being psychic, but it developed over the years. Um, when I started doing energy work, and I would do hands-on healing and I have people on the table, that's when I started seeing the spirit world.
Mhm.
And I would see probably angels first, is
Mhm.
what I experienced, and also then started seeing the deceased loved ones. You know,
Mhm.
they'd just be sitting on the sofa. It never was I was never afraid of it
Mhm.
because I grew up in a metaphysical family, so that was kind of normal for me in that respect. Um, so then I just went on, and then I, started studying different things. But in the hospice world, it was just becoming more every day, seeing the angels or the departed loved ones, and that was just became my normal. Whereas in everybody else's world, it's probably not as normal. But so then, as I would get closer to somebody who was having the near-death awareness, and I went into their energy field, then I'm also experiencing what they're experiencing.
Wow.
That's what I call the shared near-death awareness.
Mhm.
And then actually in that experience, I can work with families to have similar, to even notice what I find especially easy for families is to have the feelings that
Oh.
their loved one is having, whether
Mhm.
it's even the chest pain or whatever. As they get closer, then they can feel those kind of things. And it's really important when somebody's dying, you want them to be comfortable,
Yeah.
because it helps that transition, so that when they're, to me, this is from my point of view, if they're comfortable here and do as much healing as possible, when they
Mhm.
jump into the other world, it's easier to be alive and to get going, and just to have an amazing light experience.
So you talk in your story in the book. If you haven't seen it, it's the Last Breath book, and Kim is chapter 32. But in your story, which is a beautiful story, if you haven't read it, it's really an amazing and beautiful story. Hi, Sharon. You were talking about at one point you saw the purple and the angels that were there, and then family members that were literally, I believe it was family members that had their hands over your friend that was passing. Do you think that that happens often? And what kind of healing do you think is going on when that's happening?
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So actually, it was the spirit world hands
Mm-hmm.
that were over her.
Yeah.
And so again, the angels are common, the deceased loved ones are common, but this was different for me because it was the biggest angel that I had ever seen, and the most like
Mm-hmm.
powerful. I mean, just the power. And so what I felt like what was happening was they were prepared. It was very protective as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then at one point there was maybe 6 different spirit bodies on each, 3 and 3 on each side of her, with their hands about a foot above her body. And I felt like they were sending her healing for her body so that it would be easier in my mind. I don't know exactly because I'm not positive, but I'm assuming to make her transition easier. They were giving her healing before she went to spirit.
It's interesting because when I read that, I was thinking, because when people think of healing, and you do healing work, which it's interesting that that's when you started seeing things, because I think a lot of people who do hands-on type things like massage or healing, they're the ones that actually somehow be able to connect and see more deeply for some reason. I'm not sure why that phenomenon happens, but when I was reading that part about what you had seen and experienced, if I felt like it's not the healing that we would think about, like healing your body or getting better so she could go off with her life again, but healing more into from this life to the next life. Is that
Yeah.
what you were picking up?
I would say that is that, it is hard to know whether it was a more physical healing versus a more emotional, spiritual healing. It's
Mhm.
probably more emotional, spiritual. And for this young woman that the story is about, she was only 42 and
Oh,
she
that's
had 5 kids. And so there was a lot of emotional,
mm-hmm.
she just didn't want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think that was helping prepare her way by having these healers. And then also, since she didn't really want to go, I think she had to have somebody so big as Archangel Azrael to be
Mm-hmm.
there, like, okay, honey, this is the way you're going. There is no other direction. We're taking you, this is it. Otherwise it was just I don't know, something not as powerful.
Yeah.
She may have stayed around a little longer.
Right.
As far as maybe her body was gone, but maybe her spirit hadn't quite gone to the light to get her angel wings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really, to me, that struck me, because you don't think about that. When you think about, oh, one day I'm going to die, right? I mean, we all think about that. Someday I'm going to pass over to the spiritual world and meet my spiritual family. We don't think about that to that kind of depth. And I thought that is really a beautiful thought, because you were even talking about, you've had experience seeing your animals, or you've seen all your ancestries, and so many different aspects of passing to the other side. And I think that we don't really think that through, that, we're, like you said in your story, you're not going to be alone as you do that process, as you travel through that experience.
No, I don't think anybody's alone when they die. No, I truly don't. I feel like the room is filled. When I walk into a room that somebody's dying, the room gives me chills. I mean, there is a drastic change in that room versus the other rooms in the house.
Wow.
It feels different. The angel lights, it's very different.
What got you into being a hospice nurse? What brought you in that direction?
Yeah. So I was a home care nurse. And back in 95, when I was a home care nurse, I saw a woman on TV. It was a lunch hour in Colorado Springs. I saw a medium on TV. Her name is Rosemary Altea. She lives in England, but actually I think she lives in New York now. And I saw her, and it's like, oh my gosh, that sparked something in me. And it was at that point that I started on this journey. And one of the first things I did, I don't know how I went from seeing her as a medium to going to shamanism, but I went from that to studying shamanism. I was always a wannabe shaman, but I never really was a shaman. I did a lot of studies. I was the one person in class who really couldn't do it. Everybody else was doing great, and it just didn't work. But I still practiced it because I had the desire. And I still love that idea, but I'm just not good at it. Actually, with hospice patients, I'm kind of going off the story a little bit, but I learned to work with hospice patients using a drum to help them find the spirit world.
Interesting.
And so for those who are open to it, and I worked for a great hospice in Colorado Springs who allowed me to do that. I'd bring my drum and I would help them meet their angels so they have a little trip to the spirit world before they actually died. And it was wonderful. Yeah, really wonderful. Very wonderful to work in that way.
I'm really intrigued. I don't mean to interrupt your story, because I want you, don't forget where you're at, but I'm intrigued how, when you have somebody in that position, right, where you're at the door ready to go to the spiritual world, how do they feel about that if that's something that's not their norm? Was it like open and accepted when you would do that with people?
Well, of course, I'm not going to do it with somebody who's not open to it. So,
in general, most of society is not really open or aware of that.
But, Colorado was there's a lot of Native American influence there.
Oh, okay. Yes,
so that's nice.
Right.
But there is also in Oregon, and actually, probably every state has Native American influence. But so, you just present it in a way. And I think that's one of my, I don't know, I maybe can present something that people can say, oh, okay. Like, you know what I mean? They'll kind of like, oh, I'll give that a try. And so maybe none of them had ever done it before. But but especially if there was anxiety about dying, which is actually very common, they were willing to try something to help with the anxiety other than medicine. So I think that, as I approached it that way, it's an alternative, it's a complementary way to relieve anxiety so that you may have a little glimpse of the spirit, or if nothing else, it's just relaxing.
Yes, totally relaxing. Did you find a good percentage of them really did connect to their guides or their loved ones on the other side during the drumming?
I would say 80%.
Wow, that's amazing.
Most of them would see angels or animals.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but you know, it's funny. So, like I said, I'm not a good shaman. I'd be drunk for them and whatever, and I would see nothing. But it doesn't matter, you
Yeah,
know. It was for them. It's not for me.
exactly.
And but nowadays, so what's interesting is that as I've developed more,
Hmm.
I don't need the drum. I guess maybe I just don't need a drum, right?
Right.
I just
Right.
close my eyes and then there's things happening, right?
Hmm.
But let's see, I forgot what we were originally.
I know, I'm sorry, but I was so intrigued by that because if you think about, that's for most people, that's the part of life that we fear the most is passing over.
Mhm,
And
mhm, mhm.
if you have a belief system, when you're in that stage of your life, is that where you're going to be more open to something like that? I don't know because I've never experienced that, but it's an intriguing thought in how you
Well,
could.
I think sometimes yes, because
Mhm.
this is what I find that hospice people. That's why I love my patients is because they have come to the point where they are willing and ready to forgive and forget and to make everything as best as possible.
Mhm.
They're at that point. There's very few who really aren't. Once they're at that point, then they're happier.
Uh-huh.
It's like, okay, they're going to try to bring as much life into the last days that they have, you
Mhm.
know? Um, and so, yeah, you were asking how I got interested.
Yes. So you're
Um,
shamanism.
yeah, but that was part of it. So I, I was reading an article as I was doing my hospice care. I'm sorry, my home care about the hospice in Colorado Springs that they allowed dogs. I love dogs.
Hmm.
And they allowed dogs in a facility to go, to as pet therapy. And I thought, okay, that's where I want to work. And that's what brought me into hospice is the dogs.
Oh, that's and what a great healing modality. Dogs alone are just amazing for that.
Yeah, I would invite my dog in here, but she'd be too busy. She does like to be here though with me.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so that's how I got started. And then, like I said, I was starting to notice that sometimes I'd be knocking on the door when walking into somebody's home, and
Mhm.
there'd be a spirit like knocking on my shoulders, like, okay,
Mhm.
let her know I'm here. And that is so wonderful when that happens. It's like, wow, they really want to, the spirit world really wants the person dying to know they are there.
So, with your experience, because we do the mediumship part, and I've not worked with someone who has passed, and then tried to or connected with them. Have you found that there's a period of time after someone had passed to when they can connect with their family?
No, I find it's immediate. I
Yeah.
haven't had any. I know some people say that, give
Yeah.
them a few
Mhm.
weeks or a couple months or something. I don't find that at all. Uh,
Yeah.
I was just a week or two ago with somebody, she just passed, and I was immediate. The conversation I was having with her, she was in spirit world, and her partner was there, and I was just we were just talking about what it was like to live, and
Mm.
it was very, yeah. She had only been dead about an hour.
Oh, wow. That's pretty fast. But I think, like you said, I never believe that. I think it's immediate because we're just changing vibrational energies. That's all we're doing. It's not like we're going through some kind of long trip. I'm not getting in an airplane and flying to the East Coast from the West Coast. So
Right.
I understand that. Yeah.
One lady, it was one of my dear friends, when his mother died,
Hmm.
and I wasn't sure how long it took, but I found out she died, and then immediately tuned in, and boom. And she was she liked to have a nice appearance. And
Uh-huh.
first thing she did in spirit world was she got her mirror. She looked at it, she said, "I'm beautiful again." And it was like it's important to her. So I don't know, just, how fun it is to be able to connect with these people on the other side,
Hmm.
and um, bring messages of love and healing.
The
Yeah,
friend that you wrote about in the book when she had passed, did you connect with her after?
interesting. Did I? I don't know that I had the need so much. Now, she wasn't a friend. She
Okay.
was she was a hospice patient.
Oh, okay. Somehow I
Um,
got the impression that was somebody that you had known prior to the situation.
And maybe, but I I don't remember now. I may have tried. It's not sticking out in my mind as something that was like some major event to do
Okay.
that. But I know when I was talking to the family
Mm-hmm.
about what was happening, it was very real. Again, reliving that whole thing and the spirit connection that she had. And I have to say, they had prepared the environment for her to be a very spiritual death. When I
Mm-hmm.
say I mean every death is spiritual, but they had done, they had the oil, nice aromas, the
Oh, wow.
essential oils. They had beautiful colors, scarves, beautiful blanket for her. They had nice music. They had a shaman come and actually do some work with her. And so, they had really prepared. They were making a sacred space for her. And I
That's
think that made a difference, you
mm-hmm.
know. Um,
Do you find that families in general, when you're going through that process with them, that they tend to kind of want to ignore it and not do that as a rule? Or do most families want to make it more like spiritual and special in that process?
I find at least half is
Okay.
is a little more than half want to make it special.
Okay.
And so I usually remind people, if I have the opportunity to meet with them before somebody's crossed over,
Mm-hmm.
um, to think about what they would want to do for a ritual of transition at the time of death.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be the blanket, the candles, a song or prayer. It may be nothing, but just some little thing that, to me, because they may not, funerals, people don't have a lot of funerals anymore, right?
Okay.
I mean, sometimes they'll have a celebration of life, but
Yeah.
so this may be the only thing they have.
Wow. Wow.
Um,
That's true. That's very true.
I just remind them to think about it, because and to do what's important to them.
Mm-hmm. Kelly, hi Kelly. I didn't say hi to you yet. She was asking, when you are working with your patients and the family, do you tell them that you're a medium? Does that come up, or you just kind of gradually, gently move them in the direction they would be good for them to go?
On occasion, I will. It depends on the family. On occasion, I'll say a medium. I am a medium, but more than often than not, I don't really use the word,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know. I might just say, well, I'm noticing,
Yeah.
I'm feeling the grandfather presence, or have she talked about seeing anybody in the spirit world?
Mm-hmm.
And I bring it to them to see
Mm-hmm.
what they're experiencing,
Mm-hmm.
because I certainly wouldn't want to put my belief system on theirs.
Right. I agree. Absolutely.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
how many of the families that you've helped pass over, gone through the whole process with them, knew you were a medium and came to you and said, "Would you please connect with this person that just passed?" Do you have
Mhm.
any that do that? You want to connect with them?
On occasion, I
Mm.
have done that. Yeah. I had one lady, actually, when she was alive, she had 5 grandchildren. She was desperately did not want to leave them.
Uh-huh.
And I did see her grandfather standing behind her almost every day toward the very end.
Mhm.
But and she seemed open to it. But then when I mentioned that, she just like, oh my God, she got scared, right? And well, I think it was that she didn't want to die. But
Oh,
anyway, for her though, this is an interesting little thing. Um, she didn't want to go so much that she decided to not go. I mean, she decided when her body died, she
yeah.
just wasn't going to go get her angel wings. She just was going to hang out with her grandkids. And so
Oh.
she came to me during a meditation,
Mhm.
and she said, Kim, I need your help. And she said, I haven't gone yet. And I said, okay. And I just kind of was talking to her in my mind. I said, okay, if you just go get your angel wings, just go to the light, get your angel wings, and you can come back and watch your grandchildren. And she kind of is like, okay. I mean, I don't know why. She was sort of convinced. I guess it convinced her somehow that
Yeah.
she could do that. So, and then when I said,
Right?
huh?
We all it gave her a choice. We all like choices.
Yeah, yeah. And so as soon as I said that, I saw 2 angels behind her.
Yeah.
They put hands on her bottom, and they
Uh-huh.
were these blue angels, and they said, hurry before she changes her mind. And they were like, hurry, getting her over, getting her over. So it is interesting. We have choice.
We do have choice. And that's, it's funny. I was thinking that we have a house down the street, and whenever I walk, I pass this house, and it's supposedly haunted and whatever. It feels like it probably is. Got energy there or whatever. And I was thinking as I was walking by, really not thinking about our conversation, even though I knew we were going to have this one, but about people that don't pass over, and how, people think that you have to be trained in this and that and all kinds of stuff. But really, I think when you see a spirit or feel a spirit that hasn't crossed over, it's just a matter of what you did, talking to them about that they have a choice, that when they do go and get their angel wings and they cross over to the light, then they can come back and they can be more interactive in peace in what they're, whatever it is that they want to do while they're here. Which is really, it's not that hard to do that, but people become afraid of it. And whenever we have fear, then we have problems.
Yeah. And I haven't totally figured out ghosts versus, I don't understand all that so much.
Yeah.
And it's not my interest so much, but one of the things, I'll tell you a story that I thought was pretty amazing that, again, shows how we can share a near-death awareness. I was at the death of a priest, and he had already died maybe 30 minutes prior, and his niece and her husband were there. And so we were just talking, and I didn't notice anything at all mediumistically or anything, as we were talking. But as I walked in within 3 feet of his body, that's when, boom, I was like transported into the spirit world. It was just like, wow, what confirmation. And so one of the things I noticed was that he was surrounded by pink roses, like 2 or 3 feet away from his body, all around. And so since I didn't know the family, and I just didn't want to say, oh, I'm a medium or anything like that, I just said, I'm kind of imagining that he might be surrounded by, I'm imagining he might be surrounded by roses. And the nephew-in-law said, I can smell the flower. I can smell the flowers. So that was cool, right? And when I was just noticing what's above his head, it was like green vines coming out of his head. And instead of green leaves, it was priests in white robes with a gold sash, and all, like too many to count. And I just said to the family, I imagine he's really surrounded by his priests. And they were just talked on and on about how he was loved by the priesthood, that by the other members in the community. And I said something like, and then I was hearing music, our organ music, and I said, I imagine that there's organs playing. And they said, oh, that was his favorite music, so it gives you confirmation, but you don't actually have to say,
And I love that, because usually when we have to toot the horn, it's coming from the ego. But if you can do things, and that's the thing I love, every time that you and I have practiced together, you have this gentleness about you and this kindness about you. So I can see how really helpful you are to people when you are helping them through the latter parts of their existence. It's just a gracious kindness about you.
It's a honor and pleasure, and truly, and I do love it. I want to encourage everybody who's listening that we heal as much as possible before we make that transition, because I just think it's going to make our transition so much easier.
Right. You were talking about how it's really nagging me. So I have to go back to the shaman conversation. We're going back there. And you were saying how you weren't that good at it, and you weren't, it wasn't your forte, pretty much.
Right.
And, we were talking about this prior to us coming live, about the mediumship being kind of, people like to put it up in this pedestal, like it's something special, or it's a gift that only a few people have. And we were talking about how that's not true. And so you kind of triggered that, which we kind of briefly touched about, but you kind of triggered that again, about the importance for people to know about anything that we do. It's not always a gift. Did you freeze? I think you froze. It's not a gift. it's about the abilities and the gifts that are, I want to use gift only in the way of the traits that we're born with, and how we all have these abilities to do these kinds of things. It really depends on what your outlook in life is, what is really important to you, or what is your lesson here in life that you want to experience. So Kim, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but you may want to go out and come in again because you've frozen. I can let you back in. So you guys, if you guys have any questions about this subject, let me know. She left. When she comes back on, we can ask her, because I feel like the hospice period is a really important, and it's very touchy in the experience that you go through helping people to transition to the other side. And I love working with Kim because she's very kind in what she does. But that's a really important time period. And I think ways that you can help your family members to transition to the other side is really important for everybody, not only them, but for you as well. If you haven't read her story in The Last Breath, it's really a beautiful story of how this woman and her family experienced the latter part of her life. So with that, I'm going to give her a few minutes. Do you guys have any questions or anything you want to chat about while we're here until I get Kim back? I was going to get her to talk a little bit about her shaman experience, because one of the things that I believe, here she comes.
My electricity went out. It flashed on and off.
Wow. So you on your phone now?
No, it came back on, but it just went on.
On and off. Wow. It's like, Kim, you faded.
So sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I had to keep talking. I asked people for questions. So what I was going to ask you is about the fact that you were saying that you weren't good at being a shaman, but yet you know that anybody can be a medium. It's just a matter of working at that. So what's the difference between the two, do you think?
Interesting. Good question. Well, I mean, it's a different approach, right?
Yeah.
And I think part of it is maybe when I started to, quote, want to be a shaman, be in that phase of my life, I hadn't done much preparation for that. I mean, I didn't really have a meditation practice.
Yeah.
So I think it does help to have some sort of a practice, whether even it's a walking meditation or yoga or something, just so that you know what it's like to sit and be still and know where you are. I don't know if that was the thing that was different, but even today, when I actually brought a drum that I made, right? I mean, I'm still into, I have so many drums and rattles that I've made in the years that I've practiced, and I never really made it as a shaman. I don't know I honestly can't tell you, but I think it seems easier for me to go into spirit world with just no sound. Mm-hmm. So as a shaman, you usually use a rattle or a drum to help your brain go to a deeper level of consciousness, and then you can go to the spirit world, right? And usually as a shaman, normally you're going through a tunnel. Go through a tree or the underground, and then you kind of meet. So for me, it's more like if I don't have the sound, and maybe because I'm very auditory sensitive, if I don't have the sound, it's easier for me just to pop over. Versus the sound is a little so maybe there's techniques that some people just resonate more, easier.
Yeah. Well, that would make sense. And I've always said, we all can do anything, but we're not going to do anything because that's not our purpose in this life to do that. Yes. So we're going to do the things that are within our path to do. So that would make sense, because like for me, when I do meditations, if I'm having a really kind of ruckusy kind of day, it's harder for me to be more at peace on my own. So I will use some kind of meditative music just to keep my mind occupied so I can go into the quiet. Yeah. But then there's other times where if I use music, then I'm distracted from it. So that's really an interesting point of view.
Yes. And I adore the whole shamanic world, right? But
Too.
I don't know why. And I still, I work with my power animals. That's part of my
Uh-huh.
daily meditation. I talk to my power animals all the time, but it's just not been that easy for me. It seems, oh, my electricity acts like it's going to go out again. I hope not. Just to like go up the tree limb, right? Going to the tree limb and pick out. I don't know. I can look right here and just look because I see a lot objectively. I don't always see subjectively. The difference between
Okay.
objective. I can, I will see things, right next to me, like as I'm seeing you, but maybe in a lighter, more fuzziness.
Right.
I'm going to do it both ways.
Yes, I know you do. I'm sure you do. I don't think that I see that way yet because I think I would be afraid still. I'm going to be completely honest with that one.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I know. I don't see. I know. I'm from the knowing. Yeah.
Well, that's the beauty about everybody is an individual. There is no two mediums. There's no two people the same. I mean, we hear this all the time.
Yeah.
We have our own gifts. We have our own way that makes it easy for us. Maybe some people like to, snap two spoons together, and then that's what gets them into the spirit world. I mean, everybody's
Different. Yeah.
different.
And
Or
I started the road to shamanism, and I had the desire to do it, but it just wasn't for me. I never really had that door open for me to really take that path. But when I went into mediumship purely by accident, really, I mean, it wasn't anything I had on my radar to do. It was easy and effortless. I just went into it.
and yes.
Kind of lead you to your path. You have to follow your path, and everybody's path is different.
Yes. And yeah, everybody's path is different. And some people are, like you say, and some people, maybe their path is to do massage, right, as a healing.
Right.
I think we're all here for healing or to do healing, but it could be working at the gas station, could be your healing work. There's, it's unlimited.
Yes. And that's a good point. When I first started this path, people had the people I was connected to at the time had this idea that healing was a specific thing and it was done in a specific way.
Mm-hmm.
And I believed that thinking. So I was like, okay, I'm not a healer, but everybody's a healer because we're all doing it in our own way. And everybody has their own unique way of doing healing, whether it be through the voice or through the hands, through the words, whether you're a writer, a lot of writers are healers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very.
To me, it's just a kind word, a kind smile, or whatever. That's healing.
Yes.
And that's our purpose, in my opinion, to be here to provide love and compassion to others. And I think that's the purpose of everybody, to be here, in whatever form it is.
One of the things that has been my quest is to understand the spiritual world the best that I can. I'm so fascinated with it. And so I was telling a friend of mine a couple of days ago that I'm on this quest. I need to know what it's like on the other side. I need to really take time to really learn what's on the other side. And so, I've done a lot of different things to kind of get I love doing this because you get people's opinions, right, about what they've experienced. It's not really their verbal opinion of life. It's their experience of life. And this morning when I was thinking about that, my message was, we're never going to have the answer because we're not supposed to have the answer. It's really, I mean, we're desiring of it. We want to know, but we're going to know when we get to the other side. We'll remember then.
Yeah. And I think our experience is going to be different for everybody.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I do believe we still work.
Yeah.
I mean, if we want to, I guess.
Well, it's funny that you say that because my first thought was, I don't know that we would even call it work. We're doing our whatever that is on the other side.
Passion, right? We're doing the passion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we can just do that here too, then it's going to be so much easier, I suppose, right?
That's the one that, we can say concretely is we have no idea.
That's right. Yeah, I think I was at an Afterlife conference one year, and there was 3 on a panel. It was a Jewish, whatever, the priest, the Jewish priest.
The rabbis.
And the rabbi. Yeah, the rabbi. Then there was the Catholic priest, and then there was I don't know, like a Unitarian church minister, right? And they were all talking about what is it like in the afterlife. And what the thing they could agree on is that nobody knows.
Yes, nobody knows. Exactly. We have stories of people's experience, but that's only somebody's experience. We don't have the whole bigger picture. So everybody, I always feel like, a jigsaw puzzle, when you've got that 1,000-piece puzzle and you're putting it all together and having to find the pieces. I feel like we're all the puzzle, right? Each of us have our own piece. And when it all comes together, that makes the whole. But not one person is that one whole. It's all of the pieces together.
Yes, right. Because I do know there's church there, and I know there's music, I know there's flowers, right? We know that from our work. But what I'm curious a lot about is, like, where do the archangels sit in all this? Are they from a different planet? Are the whales from a different planet? The dolphins, the elephants, or does it really matter, really? Maybe it doesn't matter.
I'm coming to that, because I've thought a lot about that too. The first time somebody had even mentioned that angels are really from a different planet, I was like, hell no. Are you kidding me?
Well, they're not going to be from here, right?
No, yeah, exactly, right. Even with our idea of what it's like to be here, right? And what we're taught when we're kids, or whatever our belief system is. And so I had to first get around that. And then you really do come to see that what's beyond us is bigger than what we actually know. And the way that it all interacts with us is bigger than we actually know.
Yeah, I've heard so many times people say the archangels are actually from the Pleiadians. I don't know that. I'm not sure how you decide that or figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I know a lot of people that do channeling come up with stuff like that. But again, that's somebody's experience. That's not my experience. My experience is different than that. So it's a very interesting world.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the things, to me, if somebody that's listening wants to help open up their intuition, I know you haven't asked me that, but I'm going to go ahead and give you my opinion.
Go for it, girl.
I would say to raise your vibration as much as possible before you even try, because it's hard to hear spirit. Like if you're in deep grief or busy in the world or whatever, it's hard to hear the spirit world because it's so subtle. So you want to get to the most sensitive that you can be to actually hear that subtle voice or that subtle feeling or the subtle knowing, right? And to me, the way to do that is to raise your vibration. You can do it in so many different ways, but it's all about energy, right? So working with your body's energy, working with your environmental energy, working with knowing what clothes, like what fabrics or what colors work for you energetically, knowing what colors you want to look at when you're looking in your house and at the walls, or even what color plates you're eating from. Like all those things affect, or the music, it affects, and then there's also, of course, body work that help raise your vibration. So I would just like to suggest for anybody to do that, to know that will help. It does help. And I have a daily energy routine, and I do that every day. And especially if I know I'm going to be working, I actually find that works better for me even than meditation.
What kind of things do you do for that?
Yeah. So it is something that I learned from Donna Eden. She was my energy medicine teacher. So it's just like a 5-minute routine. I do some tapping, like right here, stomach 36, right? This is for grounding. I tap right here and breathe. So it's, I'm noticing as I'm doing this, it's going all the way down to my feet. I'm feeling it on the bottom of actually it's going off my toes. Okay. As I'm doing that. And then this kidney point here, tapping here. Again, that's on the bottom of your feet too. So it's about grounding and also bringing energy up to the eyes. And, so there's different tapping things I do, different body movements to get the right and left brain crossed over. So I do right, left, like hand, knee, I do something that's called the crown pull. I push in and pull apart. I can't really show you my whole routine here, but, I just pull across. So I can take in new information. I'm just pulling the sutures, like I'm pulling the sutures open in my brain, right? And it feels so good, actually, if you do it. Oh my gosh, it really feels good. I can tell I need it. And as I do that, my hands get tingly. So I know like I'm doing something.
Yeah.
Then I do figure eights. And after I've opened it, then I seal it with figure eights. I'm imagining I've got figure eights coming out of my fingers. And I'm suturing that up. And I know that works for me. So I have a little routine that I do.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah, the tapping in yoga also.
Yes.
It only takes like 5 minutes of a little stretching because that opens up, when you do yoga, you're stretching the meridians, you're opening up space so energy can come in.
And we live in a world, so we need to keep that energy moving because it's heavy being on Earth. We're here planted on the Earth. We're going to feel that density. So opening up is really important for sure.
Yeah. And noticing it's hard nowadays, at least for me, to stay not too much into the media, but to not overindulge in the media. I think that is also important.
Yeah, that's a fine balance too, to keep up on what's going on without being pulled into it and being, just suckered into the whole disaster of everything. Especially for, it's really, because that, it's all about taking care of the inner self. And those are things that help to take care of the inner self. And that's what we have to do. And that's because you're right, everything is vibration. And if we're vibrating at a low level, then we're not going to be able to connect to the other side or to the spiritual world. So it's really important to keep your vibration up. Yeah. And the food, you were doing all the colors and the fabrics and, which are important, but it's also the foods too. It's, if you think about it, it's the more dense foods that's going to hold you down. And it's the more growth, light foods that are going to help you to vibrate at a higher level as well. I'm a big one on that.
I agree. Yeah, I was actually in earlier today when I was talking to or getting messages from Spirit, and it was a friend of mine who passed over from colon cancer, and he was saying, if I was just a vegan, he said I would do it different nowadays. If I was a vegan, maybe I wouldn't have had those same issues.
Yeah. A lot of people, I was thinking of this morning as well, because it's a big subject for me, but a lot of people put so much money into their skin or their hair or diets or all these other things. But in reality, it's a matter of caring enough about yourself to put the more healthier foods in your body, because no matter what you do and the money that you spend, it's not going to heal you from the outside in. What heals you is from the inside out. So food is definitely a big part of healing whatever it is that's going on. Will it heal all of your ailments? Well, probably not, because for one, we live in a world that's not perfect. We have the environment, we have the air that's not always the cleanest, the water that's not always the cleanest, even the foods that we eat. We do the best we can. And we also are human, and this is only a temporary vehicle. It's not our permanent vehicle. So we are going to have ailments, but to have the healthier, more replenishing life is to really do everything you possibly can to keep your body in the most tip-top shape that it possibly can be in, which isn't always easy to do.
No. And some people, I hear some people say who become very, quote, spiritual, they decide they're not going to drink coffee anymore. Well, I drink a lot of coffee, and I know I probably shouldn't. But there's only so much you can do.
Well, that's the other part, because when I first started on my journey, I started in nutrition and health. And so I was a fanatic. And to be at that extreme, you're also not living, because you're so worried about, oh, there's pesticides in this food. Oh, I'm eating, something that may have a tiny bit of sugar in it. Or, I was eating so clean, it was like ridiculous. But I also was stressed out because I was always worrying about what was it that I was doing, or how, what was I eating, or what was
Yeah.
in it, but that's living in fear then. And you don't want to live in fear. You want to live in balance. But definitely in our American society, we do not live in a healthy balance. We live over into the dark zone on that one. And
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe how many people I talk to that drink sodas like crazy. And I tell them, this is really bad for you. If you want to make one change in your life, get rid of the sodas, because it's absolutely empty energy. Empty. It's not doing anything. It's only your mind that thinks that it's a good thing for you. It's amazing to me how many people brush that off. It's just that's the part where you have control over your health in that way. But again, this is like our lesson in life, so we're not going to do it wrong either.
Yeah, I have seen sodas fall out of people's hands. I mean, literally, like people who are about getting ready to channel or do something, and the soda will just drop out of their hands. It's like, okay, well, there's the message on that one.
Exactly.
But again, you're right. Yeah, we can only do so much.
We can only do so much. But we do have control over simple ailments and simple things that, that don't get out of control, but simply by the food we eat, or simply by whatever we put into our body, whether it be too much alcohol, and even alcohol. People say, well, you can have one glass of wine or one beer or drink or whatever. One is not a problem. It's when you overly do it, and then you have all kinds of internal problems. This is not going to be a lecture on food, but you can, all of your ailments start from the inside out, and you're not going to be able to heal it if you don't start healing from the inside out.
Yeah.
So that raises your as well.
Yeah, I agree. And that's how I think it all affects your energy. It's the energy. Everything is energy.
Everything is energy.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I know we're getting close. I just want to say, I know things are, I just have one little story. Is that okay? About energy?
Sure. Yes.
I mean, I know we're kind of off the subject a bit, but when I was studying back, this was 2006, I think, and I was taking this big, it was like a 5-day workshop on energy medicine, one of the kind of the early workshops. I had, let's see, it was an amazing, I'm just going to say it was an amazing experience. By the time the workshop was over, I knew everything was energy, because I had a young man working on our one of our chakras. We were doing a chakra clearing, and he only had one hand, and you could see the light coming out of his one hand. I don't remember. I think he lost in a construction accident or something with the other hand. But so he was working with, but it was a powerful hand, right? And when I stood up, everything was pink and purple. I could hardly even see pass through you and me, because it was so pink and purple. I couldn't tell where I ended and you began. So, and from there, everything was vibrating. In about a week, and it lasted about a week, that everything was colorful, vibrating, and even my third eye was like a beam. Like I would move, it was like a car beam. I'd move it, and there would be the light, and it would be moving. So it was proof. I just have living proof. I can say, oh yeah, we can all say, oh yeah, everything's energy. But when you actually have that kind of a proof and you live it, like, whoa, it was a big event for me to witness that.
Wow. Big aha. Wow.
Big aha. Yes.
Definitely. I mean, we see that because when we're doing mediumship, we're working with that energy. So it's real. It's a real thing, whether it be within yourself and what you're generating out, or whether it's what you're feeling from other people. So if you could tell people one thing about what they should know about in facilitating or helping loved ones pass over, what would you tell people? What is the most important thing?
To affirm wherever they are. God, my electricity keeps going out. Sorry, hopefully make it. To affirm the patient wherever they are, and not try to make them go faster or slower, right? Because sometimes it takes people a while to figure out their pathway. Maybe they want to, in their mind, they're going to a garden for a couple days or something, before they actually make their transition. So, and if they're saying, I'm not ready, well, you just affirm, okay, it sounds like you're not ready. So that's what I would say. is
Okay.
to believe what believe them, what they're saying, affirm them, support them where they are, rather than try to change the trajectory of what's happening. That's what I
And
think.
what would you say to people to do for themselves as they're helping in that process as well?
Yes. Okay. It's okay to be in silence. It's okay to sit with your loved one and not have a conversation. It's okay to sit by yourself and take time away from that, because it can be very stressful watching somebody die. And so often I get the question, like, how much longer? Like, it's so hard not knowing when. How can I plan? Where can I be? When, that's the hard part for the families. They want to be there at the time.
Yeah.
And to know that if that person dies when they're not there, that was the way they wanted it.
Exactly.
So affirming that's what the person dying wanted.
I had a friend who was passing away, and I went to see her the day before she died, and I knew she was going to pass away that night. But I also was very clear from her that she wanted to die by herself. She didn't want anybody around, and she did. She passed away in the middle of the night. So you pay attention to listen to the environment around you, because you can learn a lot from that as well, because you can feel that, you can hear those things.
Yes, and oftentimes they'll say, "I have 3 more days."
Yeah.
Listen to it.
Exactly.
How do they know? I don't know how they know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a mystery, isn't it? That's crazy.
Yeah, and then another thing I would say is make sure you tell them it's okay to go.
Yeah.
So that they can go in good conscience and that you're going to be okay. And not to worry, because I think there's that worry energy, just like it's bad for us here, it's bad for them there, for crossing over, it's harder.
Right.
It causes more anxiety. And just imagine that they're going to, you and they will be supported by the spiritual world, the ones that we love and the ones we know are there and the ones we don't know are there.
That's really a good point. We really haven't talked about that, because the spiritual world is also helping the people that are here and experiencing the physical phenomenon of death. And so you're being supported and guided as well through the process. That's a very good point.
Yes, absolutely. And know that when you do step into that room, where somebody's dying, or even in the house, that you are surrounded by angels. Just know that's for sure.
Beautiful. Well, I think we're surrounded by angels all the time anyway, but you're more so surrounded by angels, definitely.
They seem to show up more. I don't know why. They just seem to show up more often.
Well, that's a very sacred time. A passing of somebody is a very sacred time.
Yes, it's a celebration.
It is a celebration. Absolutely. I totally agree with that one.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like it all the time. Yeah.
When somebody's born, when somebody gets married, I feel like it's a celebration just like those other events.
Exactly. So do you have any
parties?
It is. Yeah. And on the other side, they are having a big party. And I tell my kids all the time, when I pass, it's a celebration. You have a rip-roaring party, throw me out in the ocean, I'm good to go. We're good. Just celebrate life, because it's about the life that we lived, and it's celebrating it. We'll see everybody again on the other side, or we'll come back and see people on the side again at some point. I don't know.
Yes. And I think what I would say is that we should celebrate life. That would be to remember to celebrate the little things that we have now, that we may take it for granted.
Right.
And to remember the good of everybody, the good of yourself, especially, and the good of others, no matter what kind of history they had when they were alive. Remember the good, because that's how they want to be remembered. And if that's how you want to also raise your vibration, if you're talking about somebody and they're depressed, and then they watch TV all day and they couldn't get out of the house, and then by the time you're done talking about it, you're just like you've hit the floor, right? Yeah. So you don't have to dwell on that part. Acknowledge it maybe, but just move on to the good things about that person and about yourself. Really about yourself.
It is. And I think that's hard for people to remember. And I think that's why we sometimes get into, different situations. Is this is your experience. this is what you're going through. And if you can remember that, then you get to pick what experiences you want and don't want.
Yes. And that reminds me too, when we cross over, I believe if you wish to have Archangel Raphael there, or if you wish to have the angels of Seraphim, or whoever it is, or your 2 dogs meet you at the gate, I think you can project that out to the spirit world and say, this is how I want my transition to be, and you can plan it with them.
How lovely is that?
Yeah, I think it's important. Planning the celebration from this side and the other side, and it's probably going to be way bigger than you expect.
I'm sure, exactly. Because we all have, we don't know, but theoretically we have a destined time. And, you know, they're waiting for us to come home.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
We're waiting for us to come home.
I know. I'm amazed. I'll see how many dogs I have over there.
Oh.
That I know, by the way, my parents are watching for me.
Okay.
They have actually, I see my dogs with different people in the family.
Oh, funny. Well, this has been a great conversation, and I really do appreciate you sharing this topic, because it's a very touchy topic, and it's one that's very important because we all experience it. And I hope that you were able to help people to see things maybe in a little different light, into a lighter, I think maybe a way of looking at it. So I hope that everybody enjoyed this and was able to learn from you, because it was a lot of great words of wisdom.
Thank you, Joanne. And my pleasure. And so it's always a pleasure working with you and being with you. You have so much wisdom to offer the whole world. And I appreciate knowing you.
Oh, you're so kind. Back to you. I love being able to chat with you. All right, everybody, have a good night. Please listen to the words of wisdom. Watch the news very cautiously and don't get caught up in all the craziness, no matter where it goes. It's going to be okay. And don't get all, you know, take care of yourself. Love yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Just breathe. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.